Hey, this is Randy again here at Phoenix Gun Range. Hold on a second. I feel like I'm yelling at everybody because I got my earplugs in, which I don't want to forget them this time. But we're back here trying this one gun out. We tried one a few weeks back. We heard a lot of negative things about it, so we figured we'd give it a run through, see if it was going to hold up. Unfortunately, in the first 20 rounds, we had 3 failures. And then on the 21st round, we had a catastrophic failure. We didn't know whether we wanted to chalk that up to the manufacturer or just a fluke with that one gun. So they sent the gun back. I don't know, who was it? The
manufacturer.
Was it the manufacturer? Okay, the manufacturer actually replaced the gun. So this is a brand new gun. It's not the same gun that we used before, so this is a new one. And we're going to try to see if this one fails on us, okay? We're not going to beat it up or put it through any kind of torture test or anything crazy like that, just normal use. All right, like I said, I only had 3 rounds in it on the first one, and we had our first failure. And that was a failure to fire, I believe it was?
Yep, failure to fire.
Unfortunately, we lost that footage somehow, so we just want to let you know, this ain't the first time we're trying this gun. This is a second go-around on it. And if this one comes out, then we'll give you our honest opinion on it, whether it's worth having or whether it's a worthless doorstop.
Absolutely.
We'll let you know.
By the way, I'm Nate with 864 Tactical.
All right, and we're going to be doing this together. I'm going to shoot some. He's going to shoot some. We'll talk in between the shootings to see what we think, how we think the gun handles, how it feels, what the sight picture looks like. Is it reliable? What's the trigger feel like? You know, things like this. Okay, because we want to give you just an honest, upfront opinion of what the gun is from somebody who actually shoots the gun. We're not in any way, shape, or form sponsored by anybody. Okay, these are guns we own, and they're guns that we're going to run across the range to let you know how they react and how they run. Okay, see if it's worthwhile to have to protect yourself. Because after all, that's what I'm here for, is for people to learn how to protect themselves. All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off and get going. You want to shoot first?
Take the honors.
All right.
You had it last time it malfunctioned. If you do it again, we'll find out.
Then it might be me. I don't know. All right, the gun we're talking about is this guy. This is the, as you can see, it still has the stickers on and everything. It has not been fired yet. Still has the flag in it, everything. And this is the, who makes this now? High Point. The High Point C9 yeet cannon. This is supposed to be their upgraded version with a better trigger and everything. So we're gonna find out for sure what it is. Let me get these stickers off so I can actually shoot it. Take the magazine out of there. It's already out. It doesn't lock back with the magazine out. Give me the flag. All right, so here we go. First mag. We're gonna go on this first steel target here. Get her loaded up. Eyes and ears are on. I'll move over to this target. Okay, let's see how she looks. All right, yeah, sight picture looks good. That was 7. We got a failure. That was after 7 rounds. We got a failure. Okay, it failure to feed. So we're going to drop the magazine here. Take that out of there. All right, let's take a look at what we got going on here with this now. Okay, I'm not seeing any kind of markings on the ramp, but what I am seeing, I don't know how well you can see that. Look at the ogive on the bullet. It has actually pushed the nose of the bullet deep into the case. All right, so whatever caused that failure also caused it to seat the round a little bit deeper. Now, when you seat the base of the round deeper up against the powder, you're going to create a higher pressure. I'm not sure I want to try that in this gun because I'm not too familiar with it. So we're going to just put this one aside. But that was, the magazines are 8-round magazines, and that was the last one in that magazine. So I don't know if that was a fluke of the ammo or if it was a fluke of the gun. But we're going to try another magazine and we're going to see what we got. But if we want to look at the target, okay, you can see, and I was aiming center point on this, and it does seem to favor the left side. So that may be the sight alignment on the sights. The sight picture looked good, but I'm looking at how it favored to the left. Okay, so that's kind of, might have to do with the alignment of the sights themselves. I got to look at this and see if they're driftable or if there's anything we can do with them. Okay, Now, okay, absolutely. We're going to have to adjust that sight. If you look at that rear sight, you can see how it's pushed off to the one side there. All right. Now, granted, that's for the tracking on it, but it does seem that it's pushing to the left side, which when you get that sight alignment, it's going to push the gun to the left. All right. So we may have to make an adjustment on that, although that's something that's easy enough to deal with. Okay. If you look at the sight itself, you can see that we have an adjustment screw here that we can turn that screw slightly one way or the other to drift that across. Now, the front sight, of course, is solid mount. It won't move. So we're going to have to see if we can do anything with that to maybe bring it back on target a little bit better. But as far as the way it's shot, it did have the trigger wasn't too bad. Okay. I didn't feel that grittiness like I see in a lot of the low end guns. And I could definitely feel and hear the reset on it. So the trigger seemed to be going okay. All right. We're going to let Nate load up the next round here, and he's going to shoot some and see if we have a failure with him. And we'll see what his thoughts are on that trigger. Because right now we're just looking at the sights and the trigger. Okay. We'll look at the balance and the handling ability of the gun and everything on the next go around. All right. So, all right, Nate, we're going to let you load up here.
All right. I'm gonna try the federal this time.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to announce what we were actually shooting there. We were actually shooting Blazer brass. And from what my understanding is, that's what the factory tests the guns with. So we wanted to make sure that we were running the same thing they were running. So that way we could see if it is the gun or if it's the ammo or, you know, manufacturing defects, whatever. But we'll find out more as we go through this, okay? So far, we're doing a lot better than the last one, though. I will say that much. I think, what are you putting in this time? Federal?
We're going with federal 125 grain.
Okay, 125 grain federal this time around. We're going to see what it does with that.
124 grain.
124, 125. What's 1 grain between friends?
Exactly. So, like I said, federal 124. We're going to see how this goes. All right. Now I want to go into battery. Way left. Maybe. Hey, there she goes. Hey. Ran all the way through. Well, looks like it likes the federal. It
Okay.
ran all 8 rounds, no problem with federal. That kind of lockback is kind of goofy. Get a little sticky every now and again, I guess.
Okay, so apparently it favors federal, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's try something different then. We already tried Blazer.
And what are we loading right now?
Okay, we already did Blazer brass and we did the federal. Now we're going to go with some Freedom munition. Okay, we're going to see what Freedom munitions does here. This is 115 grain, so we'll see if it makes any difference with it. That's what we were shooting the last time when we had the failure, so we're going to be able to see if we can contribute any of it to the ammo we were using. I'm not thinking it does because I sell a lot of this and I actually shoot a lot of it and I don't have any problems with it. Yep, I guess that's 8. All right, so we'll try this now. So we already determined it definitely favors left. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to push more towards either the right side or get off center a little bit and we'll see what it does there. Okay, not good. What happened here? There it goes. It did. I'm wondering if we got something going on with that feed ramp. Because
That's
that did not
quite
want to go
possible.
in on that first round. And that round was already nosed up. All right, so we're going to find out for sure. Ready? We'll go a little bit to the right. All right, what do we got here? Dead trigger right now. See that? We got nothing. We have a round in there. So we're going to drop this magazine. We are hot on the gun, so. Look at this. Tried to strip it up in the air. But we got one in the chamber. fire that round to make sure that we had just a casing in there. And then we had to use a part from an AK to actually get the casing out of there. I mean, that's pretty sad when you got to use parts from an AK to fix a high point, okay? We have, no, it's unscientific. We're doing it out here in the field, obviously. But we were shooting Federal, we were shooting Blazer Brass, and also Freedom munitions. So we set them up on the table beside each other, an empty case from each of those firings. And just looking at the casings, we could see a visual difference without having to put micrometers or calipers or anything like that on it. One of the things we've seen, if we're going to pan down here real quick, if you look at it, you'll see the center one here is actually the Federal munitions. And if you look at it, you can see that it visibly has a thinner wall. Okay, so I'm wondering if the thinner wall was able to be pushed out by the bullet being put into it, which made it a little bit wider diameter than what it should have been. And that could possibly cause the malfunction we had there where it got stuck in the chamber. So I'm not going to contribute this one to the gun. I'm going to contribute this one strictly to the ammo. All right, so we're going to continue this testing now, and we're going to look at a couple other things with it, you know, how it feels in our hand. We're going to actually take very close look at the trigger, where the resets are, stuff like that. And we're going to see if it's something that's going to be worthwhile keeping. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get set up here. We'll reload. We're going to, oh, by the way, we're going to stay off of the Freedom for the rest of this testing, because I've already determined that Freedom does not work well with this gun. So this is telling me another thing, that the high point can be finicky on its ammunition that it uses. Okay, just letting you know that up front. So if you are going to use, you know, Federal HST or just Federal American Eagle, or if you're going to use Blazer Brass, it seems like you'll be able to do okay with it. So be leery of what ammunition you get to feed this thing. Now, unfortunately, we do not have any defensive ammo here to be able to test it with. That was a hindsight, you know, an oversight on my part, but I do recommend to anybody, no matter what the gun is, whatever defensive ammo you want to carry, make sure that you run some through the gun to make sure it will feed it, okay? And make sure you also eject the cases, because if it goes bang once and it won't go bang afterwards, it really doesn't do you any good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and load up here. Grab the magazine again. And I'm going to load up here with some more Blazer, and we're going to, you know, just look at the trigger reset, the travel on the trigger, and things like that. So being that both of us shoot right-handed, we will be probably videoing it from the left side so that way we can see it a lot better. All right, so let's get this all loaded up here. This is the part I hate, wearing my thumbs out just to load the ammo. Luckily, it's only 8 rounds of magazine, but for defensive purposes, I don't recommend 8 rounds, but I also am I'm very high on the concept of shot placement. And like I said, we've already determined that with the shooting I was doing, holding it off center, I was able to keep them pretty well centered. Now, when we test the accuracy of it, we're going to move to a clean plate or repaint this plate, whichever way we want to go. All right, and then we'll be able to see what the accuracy actually is. I think I got 8 in there. We're close enough. Okay, so now we're going to be running Blazer through it this time, and we're going to go back on it. And what were we working on the last time?
We were using Federal.
No, I mean, what were we working on checking it for? Oh, to see how it would hold.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to see how it holds here with this. Drop that slide back down. Okay, and here we go. He's going to be looking, he's going to be watching the trigger. Okay, so I'm going to pretty much one-hand this from here on out, so that way you can see what's going on with the trigger. So I'll be standing in an awkward position and using one hand rather than the standard position that you shoot with, okay? So here we go. Ready? Tell me when you're on the trigger.
You're good.
Okay. It's very stiff right there at the beginning. Okay, so it doesn't really have a smooth pull to the wall. And if you look at that right there, it's out of battery again. Okay, so we're having failures to feed here. So just with that being said, I'm having a hard time with the whole failure to feed thing. This is not giving me a good fuzzy feeling for reliability. But one-handing it, it does seem to run okay. Unfortunately, the style of trigger pull you got to use, instead of taking up the creep to go to the wall, you got to do a straight press through because you don't have that discernible wall that you can find. Okay. Now, when you come out on the reset, see, it comes all the way out, and then there was no travel in between. There's all the more you got till you're on the wall. So you're pushing the whole way through the wall on every shot. But if you want to take a look down range there, now this is one-handed, and I'm holding just slightly off to the right side, and you can see where I've been putting every one of those rounds. I mean, you'll see a very distinct area there. So if you want to keep it down there, we'll do one more like that. And you can see, as far as accuracy, I'm not sure I got to go to a clean plate to be able to test accuracy. Once you learn that sight, okay, we're locked back, we're empty, that's good. But basically, what you're seeing down there, that bigger spot that's right on the center line, I was holding about an inch or two to the right. And that's where we were hitting. So accuracy-wise, we're at, what, 9 yards? And you're never going to be any further than that if you have to use a gun defensively. Okay? If you're further than that and you're using a gun defensively, you got an opportunity to get out of there. So that's your best bet. More likelihood of survival that way. But my big thing is, as far as the way it shoots, I mean, even one-handed, without having that wraparound firm grip and, you know, the thumbs forward and all that stuff that everybody talks about, I'm standing literally in an awkward position using one hand and just feeling the trigger on the pull through, and I'm able to basically stack the shots. And that's a high point, okay? So once you get past finding out what ammunition it likes, okay, this is just my opinion to this point. It may change as we go along. But once you get past finding out what ammunition it likes, it's so far shown me that it may not be a bad gun after all. Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, I hope somebody has a high point that they're coming after me with because I'm going to win that fight. Well, from what I just seen there, that may not be the case. I mean, it's got, you know, just a very tiny bit of movement till you're on that so-called wall. But the only problem is, instead of coming to the wall and then a gentle push through, it's a constant sweep through. All right, so you're not hitting the wall, stopping, getting your breathing techniques in, and then pressing through the wall. This one, once you start the trigger pull, you just keep moving with it. You do a sweeping move, but you always depress straight back. And from what I'm seeing, it's not really that bad. It's not a gun that I like the looks of or anything, but the trigger's not too terrible. It actually handles pretty well. It's a little bit top heavy. It's blocky. But then again, people will say that about one of the most popular guns out there. Okay? And they probably the highest sold gun on the planet. But it's a matter of what your budget is. Okay? If your budget allows for you to buy something like this and you get the right ammunition. And so far, what I'm looking at is Blazer is what I just ran through this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It
Blazer.
likes Blazer. Okay? This one does anyhow. And from what, like I said, from what I understand, that's what the factory tests them with. So if that's what the factory's testing them with, then I'd recommend going with it. All right? You want to give this a little bit more run time? See what you think? And I'm with you. I believe it was at Federal because we've seen the visible differences in the case. Now, we are going to do some measurements on those cases. We're going to check that. I mean, actually, the Freedom case seemed to be a little bit shorter as well. So we're going to do some measurements on those. We're going to find out how much difference there is in the cases. And we're going to check the wall thicknesses on them. We're going to check the diameters of them. We're going to check the heights of them. All right. And one of the things that I noticed, the first time you saw me fire it and we had the failure, okay, I didn't recall whether or not the round went off or not. I thought it did, but I wasn't 100% sure. But then whenever I inspected the chamber, I seen it didn't look like the primer had been struck. So hand me that Freedom case, the one in the middle. One of the things I noticed is when I went to fire it, it actually did strike the case. And what it did, and you'll see it on this, is actually, let's see if we can get you focused in there. You can see where the primer strike was. Well, right above it, you see just a little tiny dent. Okay? That's a soft strike. Okay? When it was not completely in battery, it had a soft strike. And with the soft strike, it wasn't enough to fire it. And unfortunately, because it wasn't in battery, the extractor couldn't grab a hold of it, and because the case had expanded, it got stuck in the chamber. So I'm definitely gonna contribute that failure to the ammunition we were using. All right. Now, I've used a lot of that, like I said, and I've never had a problem with it. It's just maybe the tolerances in that chamber is a little different for this. So I'm just going to contribute that one. And the first time around, I'm going to say it had to have been the Federal ammunition. Or not Federal, I'm sorry. The Freedom. All right, so now we're going to take a look at how Nate does with the trigger and see what he thinks of the trigger on this thing. You ready?
Yep. And
All right.
I am running the other recommended. I'm running Federal. And this is 124 grain. Went into battery.
All right.
Like we ran all 8.
Good. Like I said, I believe you're right about the Freedom munitions. I think that was the issue there. Okay. But I've run it through a lot of different guns and I haven't had any problems with it. So it's just somehow the tolerance is, the high point doesn't like it. But what I want to point out is, now again, Nate was shooting one-handed too, which is not traditionally how you're going to shoot when you're at a range.
And not exactly a comfort for me as well.
Right. Most people are more comfortable shooting two-handed and getting that stable stance. But what I wanted to show you was this. He did the same thing I did, okay? And we're going to walk up here and look at it a little bit closer. You can see where those rounds are landing, okay? Everything has come back into the center. Apparently he was aiming just slightly off to the right, and it brought it right into the center of the target. So I don't think that accuracy is an issue with the high point. I think it's more or less operator, okay? How well the person is trained. Now keep in mind, I am a licensed and certified trainer, and I do train people in a lot of different courses and exercises. So for me to handle a gun is a little bit different than the average person coming off the streets that might buy one of these.
Exactly.
The person buying one of these might be somebody that has met unfortunate circumstances, but yet they still have they still feel they have a need to protect themselves. Okay, so that person probably is not going to be as highly trained as like yourself or myself or some of the other people that come down here to the range. But I think with work, they could do exactly what we just did there. Okay?
Absolutely.
And
full disclosure, I'm not a professional shooter. I am an active, let's go out and have fun. All the guns I bring on, I personally have bought, and then I decided to do reviews on them. Come down here to Phoenix Gun Range, and we do our testing and shooting. So with that being said, I'm not a professional shooter like this guy right here.
Well, I do okay, I'll put it that way. I enjoy shooting, and I get behind the trigger a lot, okay? I practice what I preach. I live the way I train, okay? And that's what I want other people to do. I want them to live the way they train and train the way they live. You don't adjust your lifestyle because you're carrying a gun. Now, there are going to be some adjustments you're going to have to make, but for the most part, that gun just becomes an extension of you if you're carrying one, all right? But you do need to train with whatever gun you're going to carry, okay? A lot of times, if you're down here on the range, you'll hear me refer to them as your tools because it's just like a hammer, okay? As far as I'm concerned, it's the same as a hammer. A carpenter doesn't go up there and just start swinging away at a nail without knowing how to use that hammer because he doesn't want to bend the nails. So he learns how to hit that nail the proper way. Well, that's what I'm trying to teach people here. How to hit the nail, which would be the target, the proper way with the control of the gun. All right? So with that being said, do we want to move over and do an accuracy since we pretty much just did one?
I think we pretty much covered it. So what do you think on the bedside gun?
I think for bedside, we did have a couple of failures to feed, okay? But that was also on the initial round that we put in. If you keep it with one in the chamber at the bedside, I don't think you're going to have a failure to feed. I don't think we had any during the string, did we?
It had a couple with the Blazer, which that was its preferred round, to where both shots or both mags of the Federal that I ran flawless. So
right.
I would say if you're out practicing, buy the Blazer for just to play with. And as a bedside gun, I wouldn't recommend running hollow points anyway, despite what I've heard. However, that'll be the next video.
Yeah, there's some pros and cons to the whole hollow point thing. Okay, penetration is one of the pros. Okay, it will limit the penetration. One of the cons is depending on who's sitting on that bench or who that prosecutor is. Okay?
Exactly.
So make sure you check with your state to see what the laws are, because some states do not want you using hollow point ammunition. Okay, so again, one of the things that I always tell people is make sure you know what the laws are in the jurisdictions you're in, because that's what you're going to have to go by if you get involved in a defensive shooting. But no, back to the bedside.
And I would run the federal.
I
Because the
agree.
federal seemed to ran, it was 16 rounds, flawless, no failure to feed, no.
Yeah. And I'm kind of up in the air on why the failures to feed happened. I mean, this is something we'll have to test further to find out. But they were all on Blazer, and there was only 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
we
a
can
slight
review. We can
tap
review the
would be-
film. But like I said, it didn't. One of them was a failure to feed, where almost like a double feed. Okay. And I don't know why it did that. It might be just the feed lips on the magazine. It could be any number of things can cause that issue. They were easy enough to clear. It was not a big deal. Okay, so would I recommend the gun for personal protection to carry? More than likely not, just because of how bulky and blocky it is, and it is somewhat uncomfortable.
The
Okay?
discomfort and heavy.
Yeah, I think that would be the determining factor of not carrying it for protection that way. Carrying it as a truck gun, yeah, okay, I have no problem with that. And honestly, if we figure out what's going on with the failure to feeds, I would not have any problem with using either Federal or Blazer. Okay, nightstand or bedstand, yeah, by all means. I mean, it's better than a sharp stick, and I think we've proven just with what we were doing here that the accuracy is there. And the sight picture on this yeet cannon, they offset the colors. I mean, you got orange and yellow, which makes it very easy to pick up your targets. Okay, so when you're looking at the target and you see that you have that sight picture you're looking for, you don't have to see the target clear. All you need to have is a shadow or a silhouette, and you'll be able to hit. All right. I think that's pretty much about it. I mean, I can't really think of any real reason to say that I would not recommend the gun for in-home use or truck use. Now, carry use, no, I don't think I'd recommend it. I don't have enough time behind it to make that recommendation, but I think for the limited use you'd have inside a house or inside your vehicle, I think it would work fine with that.
I would fully agree with that. As far as like truck carry, I'd swing more towards a 357. But,
Well, with truck carry, there's another gray area with that too, and that's another day, another discussion, and that's probably going to wind up being a roundtable discussion video there, where we talk about what kind of guns to carry in your vehicle, where to carry them, what kind of loadout you should have, things like this. And again, that's another another video for another day. But for this guy here, the High Point C9,
to go to the affordable end, I could see it being a truck gun.
yeah, and I usually tell people, when you're looking at something like this, a gun that you may have to use in a defensive shooting, you don't want to have a $1,500 gun or a $2,000 gun that you're carrying around, because if you do have to use it, you're going to lose it. The law enforcement agencies are going to take the gun from you for testing purposes, and depending on the outcome of the case, you may or may not see the gun again. So, do you want to give up $2,000 or do you want to give up $169? I think $169 is a lot easier to choke down.
Exactly.
All right. So, like I said, and that's just a round figure for this gun. I mean, you could find it maybe a little more expensive, maybe a little less expensive, depending on where you go. Okay. Where we're at, the prices, fluctuate a good bit because we have a lot of big open retailers, and then we have a lot of private shops. So it makes it a little bit different to figure out what the price is going to be. Just kind of got to shop around, I guess. But again, truck gun, inexpensive option. Bedstand gun, again, inexpensive option, and it will work. That's all I can tell you about it.